Hello, everybody, and welcome back to, gosh, this must be the 7th or 8th episode of Wine Wednesdays on Viking.TV. We're delighted to be back. And by the way, what wasn't publicized is that there is one more episode after this for this current season, which wasn't ever put up on the website, but it's going to be next week, and it's with Camus Cognac from France, which is very exciting. So those of you who thought this was the end of it, no, you've got one more week. Today is very exciting. We're going to New Zealand. But before that, let's just see who we've had in the first few episodes. This is Constantine Guntram, who was in the first episode. He was a charming guy and makes wonderful wines in the Rhine-Hessen. And the history of his family over hundreds of years was just remarkable, especially during Second World War, which was riveting. Next, we went to Italy to see Alessandra Bindi Sagadi, and she was absolutely charming, and the wines were fabulous, and we saw all about Siena and her very, very historic family, one of the 12 noble families of Siena, and talked about the palio race and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Then we went to these two lads from Austria, Eric Mackendal and Marcus Huber. Eric is on the right, Marcus on the left, and they were a huge hit. Wonderful wines. Eric is in Wachau on the Danube River, so you may have seen his winery as you float past. Then we went to, you had a whole double session with me on port and Madeira. I hope you had some to drink, otherwise it would have been very, very painful. Next. Laura Rees from Gusbourne. Gusbourne is the top English sparkling wine, and English sparkling wine, if you watched last week, you'll know, but if you didn't, English sparkling wines are now making some of the best sparkling wines in the world, rivaling the great champagnes and sometimes beating them. And then we had the Carnarvons, Lord and Lady Carnarvon. Actually, it was mostly Lord Carnarvon, the 8th Earl of Carnarvon, at Highclere Castle, and you may know Highclere Castle better as Downton Abbey. It was very famous, made famous by that Downton Abbey show. And Lady Carnarvon made some appearances, cameo appearances. And today we are talking about Spy Valley in New Zealand, and we'll be talking about New Zealand wines, the history of New Zealand wines, which is about 5 seconds long. And we have two amazing guests. We have Amanda Johnson, whose family owns Spy Valley, and Daniel Adriatico, who is their marketing guru. And we're going to bring them on in a minute, but Spy Valley is an extraordinary wine. My wife used to only drink red wines. It didn't matter what we were eating. It could be fish, it could have been anything. She would only drink red wines. And about 15 or 16 years ago, maybe longer, I brought a bottle of Spy Valley home and told her to try it because it was a new New Zealand winery, which I got excited about. And she tasted it. And lo and behold, now she only drinks Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc. In fact, I can guarantee you right now in our wine fridge in the kitchen, there are probably 6 bottles, because we always have a rack of 6 and then an open bottle. But it's the only wine which I have had in my fridge consistently every single day of the year for the past 15 years. If I'm in a white wine drinking mood, I drink the Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc as well. But literally she'll drink, well, I shouldn't say how much of it she'll drink a night, but she drinks it seems like we're opening a bottle a day, put it that way. Anyway, I'm delighted to bring on Amanda and Daniel, and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, literally, it is our favorite everyday white wine at home. So anyone who wants a really strong recommendation, I vouch for this 150%.
Well, we thank you very much for your support, Bartholomew, over the years, not just with our whole range of wines, but certainly your personal support of our Sauvignon Blanc is always appreciated.
Right, now before we start, I'm going to show a quick video. It's 90 seconds long, but it really sets the scene for Spy Valley.
I love the location of where Spy Valley is, and I mean I can sit in my office and look out and see the ranges, and it's just an amazing place to live.
My favourite part is harvest and just the whole process. It's fast paced, it's fun, it's busy, it's tiring.
At Spy Valley, we're really lucky. We've got quite a large range and diverse soil types. Down at Hillocks Road, we've got a real heavy silt loam. Up here at the outpost, we've got a clay soil, perfect for growing great Pinot and great Chardonnay. Over on the main yard, Johnson Estate, there's more river soils.
One thing about the Spy Valley family is that there's always a lot of laughter, a lot of generosity and kindness going between staff members. It really promotes this creative environment where we can share ideas and help the company and each other grow as well.
Here we are. Wasn't that fabulous? Doesn't that make you want to go there? Well, there were lots of scenes of your children and other people, so let's get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and how you got into the wine business?
Absolutely. So I just want to say a warm welcome to sunny Marlborough, New Zealand, to all of your guests, and thanks for joining us. So in the early 90s, my family, who were based in Wellington, which is the capital city of New Zealand, were looking to invest in some property down here, and they bought a beautiful boutique lodge which just had 4 bedrooms but a 20-acre garden. My dad's a very avid gardener, and it appealed to him immensely. So they bought the property, and then with it came a lot of farmland. And my dad...
Can I just interrupt? I stayed at that Tamara Lodge, and it was really funny because my wife had twins, and they were probably about a year old, and I arrived at this hotel, which is right next to your winery, and I rang her the next day saying, "You wouldn't believe this place. It's got the most beautiful trees in the world. It's got a 3-star Michelin quality restaurant. There's only 4 bedrooms, and it's just the greatest luxury." And she interrupted me and said, "If I were you, I'd never talk about your trips again, because I was up all night with 2 children throwing up all night."
Well, that's right. You learn to, when you're traveling, it's always a miserable time and you wish you were at home helping out.
It is a spectacular property, and you were lucky to have that. So they bought that property, and then what happened?
Yeah, so they bought the property, and it came with some bare farmland, and my dad, his background is in finance and business, and he didn't quite even though New Zealand's overrun with sheep, it wasn't his forte. So at that time, the area we are at the beginning of the Waihopai Valley was not known to be grapeland, but he wanted to take a risk. It was that was something that appealed to him, and so we planted that farmland into grapes. And so that was in 1993, and that was beginning of our foray into the wine world. And so we grew grapes and sold them to another company for several years until in 2000 we established the Spy Valley brand. And that came about mostly because we felt like we were growing some really quality grapes, and we enjoyed doing that and were passionate about it, and then felt like we wanted to actually go the next level and produce our own wines. Spy Valley was named, as I said earlier, we're in the start of the Waihopai Valley, and a few k's up the road is the Spy Base, which is part of the Five Eyes global network. And so the Waihopai Valley in those days, the locals used to call it Spy-Hopai Valley. And so my family, my dad's quite an enthusiast, and he sent out a message to all family and friends for a competition around what should we name our new wine label. And so we got down to the couple of finalists. We had some quite interesting contributions, and my brother-in-law got down to the final. He had Trout Creek. He's an artist, very talented. We have a lot of his work around the winery, but he lives in Wellington and didn't appreciate that actually we don't have trout in our river that's on the property. But so having come from I studied business and a marketing background, I one night went in and did a PowerPoint presentation to my parents in their bedroom. I sort of got a captive audience and explained to them the whole rationale behind how I thought Spy Valley would be an ideal name, and we could have a little bit of fun promoting it along the way. And luckily I was successful, and 20 years later Spy Valley still stands here today, and we do have a lot of fun promoting our brand. And we've even had some labels back in 2007, so we had the 007 vintage signed by Roger Moore, some magnums, which was quite a fun part.
We're going to be talking a lot more about the Spy Base in a little bit because it's a fascinating story, but I was trying to grab a hold of the bottle because you can see on the bottles, you can see the Morse code that says, I think it says Spy Valley. And then you used to have, you still do, I don't know if you still do, on the back label, you had subliminal messages saying, drink more Spy Valley. And it seemed to work.
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun along the way. And, we like to take our guests up there and start with a glass of bubbles up there. It's always quite entertaining. But so we now have about 180 hectares of property. We expanded the vineyards around the valley since then to get different flavour profiles. And but the winery itself, even the building here, has part of the woodwork is cut out with a message in Morse code of Spy. So we quite enjoy that part of it. Good fun.
I think we've got some pictures of your parents. Let's have see what your parents are up to.
Oh, so I think these photos are of our first ever harvest. And back then, it's all very hands-on, very manual. We had a big party, like a traditional stomping with the umpapa band. And that's our original mechanical harvester, which we do, we have upgraded, but we do hand harvest most of our varietals except for Sauvignon Blanc. So that was quite fun. Everyone got to have a ride on that. That's my parents, my dad lifting my mother out of the big grape pile that she had just stomped with her bare feet.
That's really fun. I'm assuming Is that your father? So that's Brian, is it?
Yes, that's my father stomping the first ever grapes.
I'm assuming you don't stomp any grapes anymore.
No, but every year we do get all the staff, children or the young children, so they're usually under 10, they all get to come along, and we put out some bins for them, and they make a great mess everywhere, but they have lots of fun, and they all get a little Spy t-shirt, like that they've helped with harvest. So, we're starting them young. Yeah.
And then I think there's a picture of your mother, that's Jan, right? Stomping.
Yeah.
And then what I really found this one funny was you.
Yes, that was a few years ago, but with enthusiasm, we do everything around here. So it was great fun. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Daniel, when did you join the company?
Well, I was raised first as a vine about 18 years ago, and then they plucked me 3 years ago to work at the company. I come via different industries, so it's quite amazing to have landed the job. And going, in Spy Valley, simply because it's Spy Valley and not Trout River, Trout Creek, it's interesting. It's fun. So
you lived in the US, and didn't you live in Las Vegas once?
Yeah, I was raised in Vegas.
Were you born in
Paradise, but raised in Vegas to a womanizing jazz musician father and many stepmothers.
So your parents were New Zealanders or Americans?
My mother was actually an Aussie raised in New Guinea. My father was Filipino Sicilian.
So can you explain New Zealand?
New Zealand. Well, first of all, I'm here because I fell in love with a Kiwi, and she brought me here.
Okay.
New Zealand's incredible. It's a very outdoor space. It's not very dense with people, which is okay. Marlborough in particular is full of outdoors. A lot of greenery. It's just a fun place to be. It kind of takes you back in time a bit, if you ask me. Spent a lot of time in big cities, and I come out here. It's quiet. You don't hear anything but the stars. It's incredible.
Yes. Yeah, we're very fortunate. The climate here in Marlborough, which makes it so suitable for growing some beautiful wine, is we have clear, crisp days, and even in winter we get cold overnight with the frost, which help control pests and disease in the vineyard. But then we have these beautiful, stunning, I'm not sure if you can see out the window today, but this is a fairly typical Marlborough day. Clear blue sky.
It's a very good view out the window. We can see very clearly. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's the sunniest place in New Zealand. But the Maori term for this region is Ke Puta Te Wairo, which is hole in the sky. That's because all the mountain ranges and everything, they protect us from the highs, the lows, the fronts, the storms. So you've got a very clear night sky, very clear day, which makes it perfect for growing all types of things, and great terroir for wine and great terroir for spying.
So you're are you in the middle of the summer, or are you still in spring there?
We're just 1st of December in summer, so we've just turned to summer now. So we've had quite a wet spring compared to the last couple of years that have been very, very dry. So everything, as you can see out the window, is incredibly green. And on the first video that you showed, you would have noticed the contrast where it was a very hot, dry season last year, and so everything at this time of year was already browned off and dry. So
we have a few more pictures of your family. Let's just have a quick look at those. This is that's your parents, and are you on the left or in the middle?
I can't see it actually. I think is it a very old photo? Yes,
yeah.
I'm on the far end. Yeah, I'm the youngest of 3 siblings, so I have an older sister and a brother.
Okay.
And then sorry.
What are your siblings' names?
Oh, Nicola and Craig. So they're my sister's in banking, and my brother's actually in kiwi fruit, which is interesting. So I'm sort of based here in the winery, and they have other businesses they're involved with. But my parents have 11 grandchildren. I think there's a photo coming up to show them. So every summer, as they've all grown up, I've had like what we call a DOS house, where they've all come and slept on the floor and worked in the vineyard and helped over the summers, which has always been great fun. They have to start at the bottom, pretty much picking up rocks in the vineyard and earn their stripes, as we say, as they get older. So now my 3 children, I've got 2 boys and a girl, and now the oldest has graduated into the cellar door and helping actually when we have cruise ship tours come in. There they all are. That's Christmas in the Marlborough Sounds.
So you are officially now the 3rd generation.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, you're the 2nd, but Henry's the 3rd.
Yes.
It must be very interesting for your father, because your father was a great businessman who I think created and then sold companies, and he's now in a business where wineries tend to last for generations and generations in the same family. And was this quite did he wrap his mind around that? And what if you hadn't gone into it? What would happen to Spy Valley if you hadn't decided to go into the wine business?
I think it's always been a succession plan. And I think, if I hadn't gone into it, I think we would have had a manager to go until the next generation. I think, there's no intention to sort of sell. We really are here for the long haul. We're invested in Marlborough, invested in the winery. So my oldest son's just completing his master's in marketing, and his thesis is on, wine and based around wine. So there's definitely very much a, focus on the next generations. So
that's your family. So your parents flanking you, and that's your daughter and 2 sons?
Yes, correct. Henry, Max and Amy. So we're off to my oldest nephew's wedding. So there's, soon to be a 4th generation potentially. So that's in the Marlborough Sounds, which we spend a lot of time in. It's our local sort of backyard, I suppose. It's a beautiful sound where a lot of the cruise ships come into and sail into, and it's a very picturesque, lots of fishing and diving and beautiful walks in native bush. It's a really lovely place to spend quality time. Yeah.
You're lucky that you could go to your nephew's wedding. My niece is getting married this Saturday in England, and sadly she can only have 15 people by law, and so I have to watch it here by Zoom, which is or YouTube. I think it's going to be on the YouTube channel. But I think we have just a few more pictures of your family, and then we'll move on. Perhaps not.
There we are. That's just some recreational time. We have our wine dogs. We're very passionate about German Shepherds in my family. So that's our old dog Puka, who lived to 13, and then the little puppy Nikau, who is the winery dog these days. There they are. They're very cute. Yeah. And
so that's not mother or father and
no. So he was originally a show dog, so he was quite pretty. And then Nikau, which they're both named after native New Zealand plants, but Nikau, the young one, we call him our lemon. He was a gorgeous puppy we got, but his ears don't stick up. He's not your sort of normal. He wouldn't be a show dog. He would not get a ribbon in the show at all. But he's really lovely, and he's got a lovely nature. So he's good fun, and I guess love seeing. People, around the winery. He's
Yeah, and then the next picture I think is of your batch, and you can explain what a batch is.
Oh yes, so in New Zealand a batch is like a holiday home, and again I was saying earlier we love to bring our guests when we used to have international guests. Sadly, at the moment, with our borders closed, we can't do entertaining, but we spend a lot of our summers down here just recreating. And again, Dan was referring to our clear skies and things, so we get amazing stars at night. We have glowworms. I'm not sure if people are familiar with what they are, but they're little insects that glow in the banks. And we also there get phosphorescence, which is like when you throw a rock or you jump in the ocean at night and it all is sparkly. So we have a lot of fun with sparkly stuff down there.
Yeah, and Daniel mentioned that in the area all you can hear are stars. Well, actually, when I was at your batch, I lay out I think it was around 6 o'clock in the evening, and maybe 7 drinks time. I lay out on that deck which was coming out from your batch, and I had my glass of Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc, and I put my phone on to record because the sounds of the birds were just absolutely stunningly beautiful. And I made it into one of those, those white noise types of machines. The sound of those birds, if you play it at night, is just the most beautiful, relaxing thing. So, but I almost got killed on the water right out, just about maybe 300 or 400 yards out from your batch. I don't know what you call it, a sound, I guess. It was a beautiful, clear, calm day, and all of a sudden there was a massive bolt of lightning, which scared the Jesus out of me, and I paddled back really, really quickly because I didn't want it to happen again, but it was really frightening. But does that happen?
No, just unique to you, Bartholomew.
The occasional killer whale, like the orca, will kind of surface near there. Lots of dolphins, obviously. So I thought your story was going to go to a orca came up and said hello, but
that's right. Something a bit more.
I liked that, but do you get sharks there too?
Not really.
Little carpet sharks.
Yeah, just little tiny ones which are harmless. But we have, like, right off the jetty there. The kids and I have been on paddle boards or in kayaks, and then ended up swimming with dolphins that are playful. So it's a beautiful sort of natural environment. But to your guests who are watching, this is where you come in to the top of the South Island.
It's actually where James Cook came.
Oh yeah, well,
so just around the bay is where James Cook landed. And that's where so of all places in the world he traveled, that was the area, Ship's Cove, where he used to come and hang out. So I think 3 voyages he stopped there for repairs. So that whole area at some point was crawling with Captain Cook's men's and a few skirmishes here and there. No wine back then, but
the main legacy, I suppose, he's left for us at the batch is they brought goats out from England, and some of them escaped. So the only sort of pest, I guess, we have to contend with in the Marlborough Sounds, because we're lucky in New Zealand, we don't have snakes or spiders or anything poisonous like that, but we do have a bit of a goat problem because they eat the native bush.
Yeah.
I think it would be music to people's ears saying no snakes and no spiders. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. And just for your guests' sake as well, the fact Daniel and I can sit close together, and we're really empathetic to everyone, but we're very fortunate in New Zealand also at this time that we have no community coronavirus, so we are able to be close together. So I just wanted to make sure people didn't,
and we and if it's any, like, I don't know, it's quite, we really shut down quite a lot, and there was a lot of kind of, oh my God, we're shut down, we can't do anything. But once we got rid of it, we've had how many months of just freedom, It's
I think the whole world was watching your wonderful Prime Minister, what's her name?
Jacinda Ardern.
Yeah, she was just an example to the whole world, and if we'd all done that, we would probably have solved the problem by now. But anyway, we admire we think you're very lucky to have your Prime Minister. He's fantastic. I think we have 2 more pictures of your family, and then we'll, I believe, James. Maybe not.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing was, around that time when we did lock down, was the start of our 2020 vintage. So, it was quite an interesting time and created some real
challenges. Yeah.
Challenges. But,
it was a race to the finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite incredible.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the history of New Zealand winemaking. I said that it was pretty short because it is pretty short. I mean, remarkably, how long ago were your first vines planted on New Zealand?
Well, initially in the 1800s, there was dabbles of, sort of settlers planting grapes, and then unfortunately, due to various either disease, phylloxera, or various other things, that wasn't sort of successful and sustainable. So it was really in the early 70s.
Yeah, that was when that happened. Interesting thing is, the 1840s, the first vines were planted by the French in Akaroa, down in Canterbury. Not long after that, some of the vines were planted more by the Germans up north, and just for a little bit. But it kind of set the standard for people looking out to France, I think, for a bit of advice on how to do things. But everything just kind of disappeared, and then they came back. To be honest, really nothing really came back until the 70s, or when they decided to make something out of it. So
yeah, and I think the discovery of Sauvignon Blanc, Müller-Thurgau was, the first kind of, I guess, commercial sort of varietal, and that was quite a sweet sort of. And once when they came out from Veuve Clicquot and a guy from Croatia, they introduced Sauvignon Blanc, and that was the start of our boom.
Yeah, I think it was Patrick Bazin, who's a director of Veuve Clicquot. He was sent out around the world by Clicquot to find a place to plant Sauvignon Blanc, and he chose Marlborough and basically planted Cloudy Bay. Is that correct?
Yes, and Brancott as well were about the same time. So there's some original, probably 4 or 5 families in the area that sort of planted Sauvignon Blanc, and then it went from there. And of course, Cloudy Bay, set it on the world stage. And
and Ernie Hunter as well.
Yeah.
And they won the international competition in London. So I think there was a disease just before that. So the New Zealand government kind of they subsidized taking out all the
kiwi fruit.
Yeah, and then replanted Sauvignon Blanc. So it was like a perfect storm, or everything happened at the right time, and Sauvignon Blanc just flourished, particularly in Marlborough. It just took off, and the world hadn't seen anything like it. And in centuries and centuries of wine history, I mean, we're a blip, but what Marlborough wine has done in this short period is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's extraordinary in in space of about 35 years or something. But I started importing New Zealand wine into the States in about 1996, and it was so brand new then to the US. And today, New Zealand is the number 3 exporter of wine to the United States, I guess, after Italy and France. But it's a remarkable success story, and in fact, I've been talking to the English about how to really develop English sparkling wine, and I think New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is an example which is very relevant, because everyone thought of Sauvignon Blanc country, the greatest region for Sauvignon Blanc in the world was maybe Sancerre or somewhere like that. But today, I mean, you think of Sauvignon Blanc, you think of New Zealand, and you've got a new wine producing region which has surpassed an ancient wine producing region, and it really gives hope for the English who are making fantastic sparkling wine in England. And Champagne isn't immune to such marketing phenomenon if the wine is fantastic, and the English sparkling wine is. So Champagne has to keep on its guard, I think.
Yeah, the interesting thing about your just the ranking you talked about Sauvignon Blanc. It's important to know that they're third in America and the UK, but it's based on value. You know, volume-wise, no. But what it does highlight is that New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is actually, or wine is actually one of the most valued wines in the world. I mean,
yeah,
you get your high-priced French and your Italian and all that, but for New Zealand to be right up there in that top tier just shows you what happens.
Your Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc is what, between $16 and $18, I guess. But a Sancerre of this quality would be more than twice the price. It would probably be, since this is the one of the top quality Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand. If you think of one of the top quality French Sauvignon Blancs, it's going to be way more than twice the price of this.
Yeah, it's we sort of have a unique space. It's fresh and
I think also that is one of the reasons New Zealand has been so successful, is that they really haven't hurt the image of their wines by putting out really cheap ones. It is inexpensive for the quality, but it's not cheap wine. You know, and so many, you know, the problems Australia had, you know, they had a disastrous collapse of their industry because of the introduction of very cheap wine. So, is that a conscious industry decision not to go that route?
Absolutely. We have a really great industry board here, and because we are quite a small country, I think we all really appreciate as an industry that we're quality focused, and that if we let that go, we could lose this wonderful thing that we have. So the focus on quality marks, and you know, there's a big sustainability push. You know, it's a more holistic approach to it rather than just returning $1, if that makes sense.
Also,
you know?
also we've learned from a lot of the region's mistakes. I mean, we're quite young, so there's that. There's also that it's just great. It's just really great fruit. You know, it's great wine that happened. So we knew that pretty early on that we had something. Well, New Zealand had something pretty special. So, you know, and everyone collaborates quite well. It's a small country. They're not spread out. So I think the conscious effort was there to protect it. You know, so, and that's how they're going out to do it.
And there are some large wineries in New Zealand, and you are a family-owned, estate-grown winery. I think a lot of the big brands which people recognize in this country from New Zealand, I think it's safe to say that very few of them are actually still family-owned and estate-grown. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So there's a lot of smaller boutique wineries, which we feel we're sort of fit into, and then there are some internationally owned big companies, but I think collectively, you know, the representation is still for that quality, you know, product.
And then there are two symbols on your bottles. I'm going to show them both to you. There's this one, and then there's this one, which is fairly new.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about those two?
Yeah, the first one on the front is New Zealand, is sustainable New Zealand wine growing. That's something that a lot of the wineries here in New Zealand, most of them adhere to. It's there's several pillars of sustainability, and it spreads from the vineyard all the way through the people and how you run your company. So it's quite important for New Zealand's brand. Obviously, if you know anything about New Zealand marketing around the world, you hear New Zealand Pure, you see that fern. And it's kind of along the same lines. We want to protect our land and protect the people who work in the industry. So there's a lot of things there. For that particular reason why we put it at the front of the bottle was because we thought it was important enough. Not many people do, but we put it there because we think that's we want to be around for the next 300 years, or at least the Johnson family wants to make sure it's that way. So I think the most important thing for us is that. The next symbol is a kind of like an appellation that's been formed by some of the top respected Marlborough wineries here. So it's appellation Marlborough wine. It's basically a criteria of quality measures to make sure that you're not putting out crap stuff. It has to be bottled here and grown here. There are some criteria about levels of planting or levels of yield, but the biggest thing really is all the members have to pretty much taste it and say, collectively, yeah, that's good enough to have that symbol, which is, made up of winemakers and people in the industry. So that's that peer review is quite important. So it's something that's new that's going to be spread more. If you see that on the bottle, you've got quality.
And you've also got an authentic Marlborough brand. It's grown in Marlborough, it's bottled in New Zealand, and it's capped at a certain yield in the vineyard. So it's a quality rather than a quantity brand. Because
there are some wineries which import or have imported wines from Sauvignon Blanc from Chile to bottle as New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, but they can't re-export that, can they?
Not with that mark, they can't, no.
But if it doesn't have that mark, is there any possibility that it could contain wine grapes not grown in New Zealand?
85% needs to be the New Zealand volume, but so that's why we really pride ourselves that it's all 100% Marlborough grown, and we have our own vineyards. We're vertically integrated, so we actually have our own vineyards where we grow our own grapes. We then make it on site. We also have a bottling line, so we bottle it all here, we warehouse it here, and we send it, market it, and we have our own cellar door where we sell it through. So, that's, for us, that's another quality stamp, that we actually have those controls all along the way from, the growth phase to the marketing phase. So that's something we're quite proud of, yeah.
Marlborough is the most important wine region, but it's not the only one. There's Hawke's Bay, there's Marlborough, there's how many wine regions are there in New Zealand?
Well, it changes all the time, but starting from the top, you have some vineyards around the Auckland area. As you say, Hawke's Bay is quite well known for their reds and Chardonnay.
That's the first growing,
Marlborough, which again is quite well known for their Pinot Noirs. Marlborough, obviously predominantly Sauvignon, but we also grow a lot of other varietals, Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Gewurz. We actually grow 8 different varieties here at Spy Valley and produce those different varietals. And then you have Waipara, which is around Christchurch. People might have visited Christchurch. It's kind of an old English sort of feel about the city, but north of there is a new up-and-coming wine area, and Central Otago, which is near Queenstown with the big mountains, quite dramatic scenery, is a very Pinot Noir focused growing area, and they make some beautiful, but it's quite diverse. We're a long, skinny country, so all the flavour profiles are slightly different. So you could do a nice wine trail from the top to bottom and never have the same experience.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And actually, we are going to, at the end of this show, go to the questions, but there is one question which is very pertinent to this, because you mentioned that you make 8 different varieties, and one of them is Riesling. And Candela from Milton in the United States said, how is the quality perception of New Zealand Rieslings in export markets, the finest I have had outside of Europe with great potential? And I agree with her. And in fact, didn't your wine, your Spy Valley Riesling, get voted the top Riesling in the world in Japan? Or
well, actually, in Germany, we've got a trophy here from 2006. But we won a Riesling trophy at a big German competition. So that was quite exciting. Our wine maker, our previous winemaker, who was with us for about 14 years, was a Riesling guru just loved it. So he spent a lot of time and love making some real quality Riesling. So we're pretty proud of our Rieslings.
And also our new winemaker is one of the top Riesling makers with Saint Michel.
Yeah.
So, and look, I mean, our Riesling is quite good. There's two things that drew me to Spy Valley before I even thought I'd work in the wine industry. One was its Gewürz, and the other one was its Envoy Riesling. And that Envoy Riesling actually locally here was back-to-back double trophy champions for New Zealand aromatic competition. Yeah, that one. So we do our Riesling quite well, and I think there's a lot of room for the world to open up and see that the Rieslings from our region are quite high quality. So I agree completely with that question. I think.
So just for your understanding, so Spy Valley is our main, brand and what you'll find more likely, but Envoy is our extra premium range, and so that's all hand selected by the winemakers from different vineyards, tasted around the property, and sort of we only make a small volume, but it's delicious.
Yes, and then so you make different ranges. You have Satellite. Tell us about Satellite.
Yeah, Satellite is more of our fruit-forward drink now wine. That's the wine you drink on your sun deck by the pool or by the sounds. That's the way I like to describe it. If you see a bottle of Sauvignon of Spy Valley in my hand, that's because I'm coming to dinner. This is a bit more, it's a bit softer, it's a bit of oak, and that's what I use that for. And the Envoy is basically, micro block, small batch wine. That's the cream of the crop for our winemakers.
And then you have a couple of other curiosities. Can you tell us about the concept of Easy Tiger? Is that still something you make?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a massive drive in the world to look at some lower alcohol. So that's a 9.5 alcohol wine that was made pretty much exclusively for Mitchell & Butlers in the UK. It's now spread out a bit as more and more of the world want it. It's naturally grown. It's not, I don't know if you know much about, if your viewers know much about low alc, but there's many ways to make it. And some people centrifuge it and separate the alcohol. Ours is grown to be light alcohol. There's a bit of canopy management, and it's picked a bit early. So along with Forest, I think we've got some of the best light alcohol here in the region.
And what we've found actually just over the last few years is, as Daniel was saying, the popularity of that style of wine is increasing with, you could have 2 glasses of that and still drive home, or, it's quite a different, you could have it at lunch and still be able to go back to work, things like that. So it's there's that real health and well-being movement, I think.
About 30% less alcohol than our regular alcohol.
Yeah. So,
and calories too, less calories.
So to make a 9.5% wine, Easy Tiger, is it you just pick it less ripe, or?
Yes. Yeah. They it's the first wine they pick in the vineyard, and it's naturally made, but without de-alkalizing it. So it's.
Then we have another wine which you've made called Kimi.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's mostly found in Australia.
Kimi means to search or to seek in Maori. It was just kind of like an on-exclusive wine. It's something we want to develop for further markets. But it's more of a lighter drink, not light alcohol, but it's similar to Satellite.
And you have sold a little bit in the US, haven't you?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
And you also make rosé.
You're just having a quiet night there. Yes, we do make a rosé. So this is a Pinot Noir rosé, 100% Pinot Noir rosé, which is actually made from right outside where we're sitting. So it's hand harvested, single vineyard. and it's made in the style. It's a sort of light blush salmony colour, and it's a fantastic summer drink. Although what we've found is this winter, a lot of people have been enjoying rosé. It seems to be gaining in popularity as well, and it provides an alternative to a Provence rosé.
It's delicious, and you made it in a sensible sized bottle, because if there are two of you, this normal size doesn't really do it. You've got to have a bigger bottle for two people, don't you?
Absolutely, or maybe guests for lunch. But so we do. I mean, probably 75% of our production is Sauvignon Blanc, but we, as you say, make rosé, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Chardonnay.
The Gewürz is
Pinot
outstanding, by the way.
The Gewürz is excellent, and then we make Pinot Noir also, which is Marlborough's known as a different style.
Yes, we are going to taste the Pinot Noir a little bit later, but before we taste the Sauvignon Blanc, which I think a lot of people probably have this, it's very widely available in England and the US and other places. But just tell us a little bit about this spy base and what exactly they do there.
No comment.
We can't say.
We can't say.
I've heard that every single phone call that's made on a mobile phone has been recorded by this spy base since the inception of mobile phones.
Well, I think the reality is that they're looking for catchwords. So, anything that might alert them. But we do have a good relationship with them. We don't know them, but they do buy Spy Valley wine for their Christmas parties. So we appreciate that. So they, and we do, as we say, take people up to visit on the outside. They, it's all quite heavily barbed wired and
the public story, which it's not our story, but it's part of the Five Eyes network, which is a network of allies from the US. It was built a while ago. UK, Canada, Australia, and it's a network of watching systems that listen to everything. The particular role of this station, from my understanding, is to watch the satellites. Well, not watch them, actually listen to what they're doing. The other reason it was originally built is because the massive cables that move from America all the way through the Pacific to Asia, this was kind of the closest point where they can build stuff like that. Obviously, as technology changed and it's gone to mobile phones and that, they can listen from anywhere, but basically they just keep an eye out or an ear out for anything odd. Once in a while, all our electronics here stop. I think it's when they change shift and they switch on and off button.
I gather that it's a very mysterious place. No one knows who works there, because if you follow, all the employees are bussed in, and then they are bussed to a big apartment building in the city, and then they're dispersed. So you see people coming out of an apartment an office building, and you don't know they work for the spy base or some other companies in the buildings. It's all very secretive. And
the only phone call I've ever had from a mysterious voice on the end there was to say they know that we come and we show our guests, and it's a point of interest, but they just would appreciate we're not allowed to take any photos while the staff are coming and going. That's
and also,
the one criteria. So you're right, it's all steeped in mystery.
And they said to stop posting those photos we do take online, because after all, they are a base. But it's quite good. It's quite funny because a lot of the anti-government people they'll pick it outside the fence,
once a year.
Once a year. Once they're done, they'll come here and drink all our wine. Within the same month or a few weeks, there's always a big conference with all the spy boffins over there. And they'll send a truck and like a military police here, buy a bunch of wine to take with them to their little conference. If they timed it better, they'd end up here, and this could be kind of a place they can work out all their problems. But
the spy base.
I think the uniqueness too was that when it was originally put in the Waihopai Valley, it was a very, barren, sort of just farmland. So, you know, it was quite a secretive sort of location. But of course, now as the wine industry's built up around it, it's sort of, you know, become more of a focal point.
Wasn't it also, isn't above Marlborough or above New Zealand the thinnest ozone layer in the world, and also so you've got absolute clarity of signals going to whatever you're spying on?
That's correct. And along with that, we also have to wear a lot of sunscreen in the height of summer, because it is a very clear, you know, we get very strong UVs here over summer. Yeah, but they do get that clarity. Yeah.
Now we're going to taste the wine. So the first wine is the Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc, and just for convenience, it's in screw top, which is fantastic, keeps the wine fresh. I don't know if any wineries in New Zealand still use corks, do they?
There's a few, but it's primarily the thinking here, it keeps it fresher. So you'll see the corks mainly for some of the more interesting wines, you know, the small batch stuff.
Yeah, small food wineries. Yeah. So, cheers, everybody. I hope you can join us at home for a
Sorry.
cheers. Cheers.
The thing I like about this wine is I like Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand in general, but some of them I find a little bit too tart, and like Rose's Lime Cordial.
Yeah.
This has a better balance of fruit and fruit sweetness to balance out that high acidity, but the acidity is still there to make your mouth water and make you want to drink it. It's got a beautiful smell.
Mm.
And it's a sort of wine which, you know, you enjoy drinking whilst you're cooking, you enjoy sitting around the pool with friends, you enjoy sitting around the house. You can have it with cheese before dinner, or you can have it with any sort of regular food. I mean, you're not going to have it with a steak, but any seafood, chicken, pasta, all sorts of things. It's just the most versatile white wine you can think of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's fresh enough. So there's a bit of grapefruit in there, a bit of feijoa.
Yeah, it's got a tiny, and I don't want to scare people off, but it's got just that slight oak, and they use that to kind of soften the acidity. And I think the word, when you use balance, I think that's the perfect terminology. When I first started here, I tried to find one word that I could put plaster all over the marketing, and balance was the one that I got. I'm one of those people who did come from less of a Sauv thing. So when I tasted Sauv, all I recall were probably cat piss, that kind of, you know, it's the truth, that syrupy kind of cordial. So Spy Valley and a few other, you know, of our close wineries here, we really did kind of, it opened my eyes a bit more. And I went, oh, there's a lot more complexity and layer in this. And, you know, definitely what I love about the Spy Valley character is that it is fruity, it is fruit, but it's a lot of stone fruit. You know, it's a lot more of that kind of subtle fruit than it is from the more big fruit bombs. So
I think from the winemaker's perspective, I'm not sure, you probably can't see out here, but we're very close to the Omaka River. So we've got some very stony alluvial soils right down to our vineyard at Hillocks Road, which we don't have to irrigate at all. It's got a wetland, and so it's a much moister sort of environment. So the winemakers get to pick all the best, you know, from the different areas particular to that season, because the last two seasons have been incredibly hot and dry. This season we've had a lot more rain, so you know they get to really pick the eyes out and make the best for, you know, that season customers.
Another thing I love about this is it is only 12.8% alcohol, which is extremely important, because, you know, if you are sort of drinking this for cooking, whilst you're cooking, and then you go on and drink it with your dinner, you can drink a lot more of this than you can of wine that's 14% alcohol. I think it's a very friendly wine for just consuming and not worrying too much about having any sort of impact.
Well, I think, you know, as you were saying earlier, your wife's got excellent taste, and, you know, it can be an everyday drinking wine. And as you say, it might be like, for me, I love a glass of Spy Valley Sauvignon when I get home from work at the end of the day, just to relax, decompress, as you say, think about what I'm going to do for dinner, and then have a glass with dinner or two, you know. So it is a very easy wine to drink, but also has that balance and complexity of a delicious Sauvignon.
Yeah, and by the way, just really quickly, Bolu, that Morse code is, just so you know, this one says for wine lovers.
Oh, really? Because you change this, don't you?
Yeah, we change it occasionally, yeah. So that one there, yeah, that still says for wine lovers. Who knows what it will say next year or this year.
So the really interesting thing is, because in America we have to get labels approved by the government. They're called cola label approvals, and of course they'll approve this every time because no one there reads Morse code, and they can't read that it says something different every time.
Yeah, it's funny. We did have one story where we've got a really small airport over here. It's like a good old airport. You land, you walk out the plane, walk on the tarmac. In the airport, we've got a good friend who runs it, and we actually had a big sign that had Spy Valley with the Morse code. We had hired a local person to put it up there. Anyway, we got a call from a guy who was on the tarmac and said, hi, I'm sorry, I'm just in a plane right now. I'm military, and I'm looking at your sign, and your Morse code's backwards. So we had to go change it. So some people do know.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, so it's quite entertaining indeed. Yeah.
You make a Chardonnay.
Oh, yeah.
We do.
It's right there. That's the Chardonnay right there.
And what does that one say? That doesn't say.
Sunny, I think. Does it say sunny?
I think there's smoky or oaky.
Smoky? But there's an S there.
The Morse code, what does it say?
Smoky. Smoky because it's oaky.
Of course, you could make up anything and none of us would know.
It says...
well, we do have...
Broadbent.
Yeah, there's Bartholomew. But we do, you know, we have some merchandise that we sell in our cellar door, and we have these wonderful tea towels that have the Morse code. So sometimes we have guests who sit down and they decipher it all with their, with their tea towel and work it all out. So it's fun.
You might not understand the tea towel reference.
Oh, what's it? You call? Oh.
Yeah, because the
wash.
We've got these tea towels that have Morse code, how to Morse code on it.
Did I not say that? Oh.
Can you tell me what the ISC is? Because you've won twice. You've won ISC Winery of the Year. What's that mean?
ISC or ISWC? ISWC.
International Wine Show. Yeah. So we've won Winery of the Year twice, which is quite exciting. And as Dan said earlier, behind that here we've got an array of accolades and awards we've won over the years for the different varietals, which is pretty exciting to have that recognition. And we've had some lovely write-ups in Wine Spectator and Decanter magazine over the years, so it's a real thrill. And
how many countries are your wines available in?
35-ish.
35-ish.
Yeah.
Our main markets are probably the US, of course, and the UK, and then we have some quite interesting countries around the world that.
Russia's been great to us. It's quite good. Russia, a few of the Eastern blocs. In fact, I think we were the first New Zealand wine in Belarus.
Wow.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there's lots of we got wonderful people all over the world, Norway, Sweden, all through Europe.
How do you go about picking a wine importer?
Well, they have to be good looking, Bartholomew.
Well, we squeeze through. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of the wine distributors have been around before I came around, but I can tell you that first of all, most of the wine distributors like yourself or Bibendum in the UK, we've been around for have been a relationship for a long time, going toward 20 years. Is that correct? So
yeah,
the people that they've picked have got great relationships. I think we picked people who are fine wine focused, which is good. But you probably sorry.
Oh yeah, I just from a family and long-term perspective, I guess it's really important to us that we're working with like-minded people that share the same values and integrity that we do, and that obviously the passion for wine. But we like working with people who are fun. They take their wine seriously, but they know how to have a bit of fun.
He's got a story to.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Yeah.
It's funny because when earlier on you were telling about how you persuaded your parents to name the winery Spy Valley, and you used a PowerPoint presentation to go through it. But it's really funny because when you were looking at us as an importer, you flew to the States, and we took you out for a picnic in a vineyard. And then you flew to Chicago, where there's a very big importer there, and they gave you a PowerPoint presentation. And then you flew to New York to another very big wine importer there, who gave you another PowerPoint presentation. And then before you left, we took you out for dinner. And I think the philosophy you had was we want to work with people we enjoy hanging out with, not people who show us PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah. Oh, that whole family thing, it's like, we think of you as our extended family, and, it's always a thrill for us to have you over here when you're visiting. And it is. So you've probably realised over the years we kind of treat you like part of the family. We might throw you in to help out at the winery on a day. But, that's really important for us, that connection and, that shared sort of vision for the future as well. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a few more pictures to go through, and then we're going to go and taste the Pinot Noir. So let's just we've got a wonderful producer behind the scenes, James Prismal, who's going to show us these pictures, and Amanda, you can just tell us what each one is.
Yeah, so this is the winery. This is the Spy Valley Winery that was completed in 2003. We started building in 2000. And, for us, it was very important to use local sustainable products, local cedar. We have, all the plants around the winery are native plantings for New Zealand. So that's really important.
Didn't you win an award for the most sustainable building or something?
We did, and we were one of the first to install solar panels for our energy purposes. We often, at low periods where there's low use in the winery, we put back into the grid. So there's a lot. We have a lot of other trees on the property, olive trees. We have fruit trees, nut trees. So we have a vegetable garden at work. So, our staff are really important to us in that diversity as well. So we like to encourage people to go out and pick the olives during the season, or, take home their fruit, for the day. And it's, we have a really amazing team here, but it is, again, that family focus and, valuing, the people who are making it all happen here on the property. But yeah, we won an award for our landscaping and also for the architecture.
This is this your winemaker? What assistant winemaker?
We can't see who you've got there, but I'm assuming. Oh,
Emily. Yeah.
Yeah. So Emily Gaspard Clark is our young assistant winemaker, and she last year won the Young New Zealand Winemaker of the Year award. So it's really exciting to have experience in the winery with Wendy Stuckey and Rochelle Collier, who's been with us for 7 years now, and they sort of have their areas of expertise, but also to be bringing on some young, exciting winemakers as well.
Yeah, during the time that I've known you, there was a brief spell when Aunt Mackenzie was your winemaker, but mostly your winemakers have been women, and now, of course, you're a woman-run company with you running it, and Daniel's maybe an odd one out. He's not a woman.
Growing his hair long to
I'm
fit
trying to
in.
fit in.
But,
I get
is this a strategy, or is it just that women make better wine?
Do you know what, I think it's women make better. No, I'm just, we're always looking at the best person for the job. And it just so happened that at the moment we find these three women exciting and dynamic, and their focus on quality, what they contribute to the company is a huge value to us. And prior to that, we had a male winemaker for many years, and so it's not a deliberate thing, but we do love diversity in the company. It keeps everyone honest and on their toes.
Although
we have healthy debates and discussions.
No, which is great, but it's quite interesting that part of the whole, we've got a bottling line. They're all women. Our marketing team, all women. A lot of our admin operations, all women. It's quite. I think it's quite unique. I mean, I think there's me, Dean. That's it. Oh, Kevin.
Jazzy. There's lots of males.
Look how many women there. It's great. I think it's great. It's a lot more. It's a good balance.
Yeah, but again, it's not deliberate. It's looking for the best people for the role, and it just happens that the cards are fallen that way. This is two of my sons and some of our other lovely staff. They were at a wine show and so festival serving customers. So I love that my kids are out there. They're very passionate, but we also have a lot of talent. Dion on the other end of the screen, he works in our vineyard, but he loves to go and promote, at shows and things like that. So that's what we love. It's a close-knit team, and we all sort of pitch in where needed at the time, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And this is our lovely winemaking team. So we've got Rochelle Collier, Emily, that was at her awards evening, and Wendy Stuckey. So they're just fantastic talent there, right there. Yeah, making quality wines.
There's Wendy.
There's Wendy.
And she's your head winemaker.
She's our chief winemaker, yeah. So she's come from working for Kim Crawford prior to us. And before that, she worked in America, in Washington, with St. Michelle. So she's got amazing depth of experience, which is great to also mentor the young ones.
How does she adapt it? Because those two wineries are massive wineries, and she's come to a family-owned, estate-grown producer. How does she adapt, and what changes has she made to your style?
Well, she's been a fantastic addition, which is why we, elected to bring her on board, because she brings different, more process-driven and compliance-driven, which in this day and age with health and safety and things like that. So she's really contributed in that way, as well as being a really talented winemaker. So she brings a different offering completely. And just to emphasise to your guests, how small New Zealand is. My children went to primary school with hers. So, so there's always links. Marlborough is quite a small town. And so, it's lovely. I play tennis with her husband and a couple of others on a weekly basis. So, it is all about family, and, there are all those connections.
Yeah, and she's, she is an artist by trade. I mean, that's what winemakers are. And she's, her kind of goal coming in originally was to keep the style and what Spy does and continue on that what we're known for, our reputation. So that's kind of has been her goal. Unfortunately, her first harvest was in the middle of the apocalypse, but which kind of affected what she, can do. We're coming to 2021. I think we're really going to see what amazing things she can really, really do now that she's got one under her belt. A real difficult one under her belt.
I don't think she could have a more challenging start.
Yeah.
Than
but and the wines, the 2020 satellite that's come out is probably some of the best satellite we've ever had. And, our 20 Spy as well. I mean, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Interesting that St. Michelle is the biggest producer of Riesling in the world. And now she's making very, very fine, one of the top quality Rieslings in the world in New Zealand. It's quite a change.
Yeah.
We are going to taste the Pinot Noir. Yeah. And whilst we're doing that, we're going to talk about go to some questions, but the first question I want to address, and then you can talk a little bit about Pinot Noir. The first question is about Pinot Noir, and it's from John in the United Kingdom, who says, I have been pleasantly surprised how New Zealand Pinots have taken the world by storm in a very short space of time. Gone seem to be the days when the first decade of vine's life could not yield quality fruit, added to the fact that Burgundians always moaned that the Pinot was a tricky vine. What has been the magical Kiwi formula? Is it down to clone selection, allied to perfect Pinot climatic conditions? And then John, by the way, thanks for your personal PS to me about my father and how you met him when you were at Trap Cellars. I'm going to try and answer that one personally in an email to you later on, but let's have Daniel talk to us about this Pinot and how New Zealand has achieved this great thing.
Yeah, the history of Pinot, I think, in New Zealand is still quite strong. I think that when Otago was planted with Pinot back in the days, I think there was a lot of influence from the Europeans in the first place. I think, first of all, we've got the climate, and we're in that special belt where Pinot is really good, right? But you have to understand, because we are young, the people who are making the wine here are learning from the masters. I mean, we're not going out trying to just do our own thing. I think Otago, from the start, the owners of those wineries, the people who actually, the viticulturists, the winemakers, they were already there. A lot of them were from Europe, and a lot of them did it the right way first off. Marlborough has only started catching up now. We're in the southern valleys, which is ideal for, it's got the right clays and everything that you expect Pinot needs to grow in. I think the difference is, I think the reason why we've taken people by storm or the world is basically because we know how, we've been taught how to make great Pinot. We do hand pick it, like this. We do wild bunch some of it. It's natural fermentation. It's for natural yeast. It's a bit of French oak. So we do it right, and that's probably the main reason. I think you're not going to do it right if you don't follow the history of great winemaking. And I think if you ever hang out at the pubs here with winemakers, and I'm an outsider, but they do talk about how people do it in Europe, how, they don't try to mess with things that don't work. I mean, they machine harvested Sauvignon Blanc because they looked at the research, they did the studies, they saw that the way that Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc appeals to and, like generates its styles, and, machine harvesting seemed to bring that, that veracity. Pinot, they followed how you meant to do it, and they do talk about it. And we're part of the Pinot Safari, which is a group of some pretty good winemakers here in Marlborough. And it's all about what is the best way to do it. Our outpost Pinot is on steep slope. It's, low rows, small rows. It's done the old style. And that's how we do it.
Everything's, hand harvested.
Yeah.
I remember quite a few years ago, there's a famous wine writer in America called Anthony Dias Blue, who I think he was choosing wines for, I think it was Cathay Pacific Airlines, and he wrote to me and ordered a case of Spy Valley Pinot Noir for himself. Quite unusual for wine writers to actually buy wine because they get so many sent to them. But he actually ordered a case of wine, telling me that it was the closest thing he had ever had to a great Burgundy outside of Burgundy. And I think Spy Valley has nailed it. The vintage I'm drinking is 2016, but with Pinot Noir, you're looking for lightness in color, and you have lightness in color. You don't want a blockbuster, dark, deep color. That's not normal for Pinot Noir. No. And this has a beautiful little pink rim, and it's a beautiful pinkish red.
It's got a bit of that garnet kind of tone to it, which I liked about the Burgundies. But you're right; it's probably lighter than a lot of the, the Pinots you get in other places. I think that's where the world is for. Yeah.
I think if you're looking at Pinots around the world, the closest to Burgundy is New Zealand. More so, Oregon I don't find very similar to Burgundy. They make nice Pinot Noirs, but they're sort of bigger, more alcoholic. They're not as light as this in general. This is only 13% alcohol, again, which is I like to drink my red wines at night, and this is on occasion my everyday wine at home. It's a little bit expensive to be my everyday wine, but when when we have a few extra bottles, this is what I drink for every day. It's more of a weekend or dinner party wine for me because of the price point. It's what's around, I think, around $30 a bottle, something like that.
Delicious at Christmas time, though, for all of you in a cold environment with your turkey, lamb.
The good thing about us all being confined to home is that we are drinking more, but because we're not spending a lot in restaurants, we can up our price points for drinking wine. But I do love this Pinot Noir. I think it's as good as anywhere outside of Burgundy, and as good as many Burgundies.
Well, it was actually, I don't chase awards necessarily, but there was gold. It was a gold medalist in the New Zealand Wine Awards last year, and it was picked for finalists for the trophy. So that talks volumes about this wine, and it's a beautiful wine. It's got nice kind of earthy character to it as well, and that comes probably from the wild, the wild bunch fermentation. But everything about it, I love. I'd pour it over myself if I could.
Let's go to some more questions and actually comments too. In fact, John, who asked the last question, went on to say, let's hope 2021 be less fraught than this year, and let us return to the Viking vessels. I trust too that their ships will stock some of the gems you have featured. Well, we're talking to Viking because what I've suggested, I don't know, of course, if they'll do that, it's not up to me, but I've suggested that on their wine list, they have a little section that says, as seen on Wine Wednesdays on Viking.TV, because these shows will be available for passengers to watch in their staterooms, and they could watch one of these shows, then they could go up to dinner and order one of these bottles, perhaps. That would be fun.
Yeah, I think that's the fantastic thing about wine. There's always learning to be had, hasn't there, and experimenting. And I think, for people to be able to see a bit of where they're drinking, a bit of sunny Marlborough, and then be able to taste it with their delicious menu on the Viking cruise ship, would be a really unique experience for sure.
Yeah. This one's from David in the United States. Thank you, Bartholomew and Viking. I've enormously enjoyed all your episodes on Wine Wednesdays. Well, thanks very much, David. This is from Robert in the United States. We were fortunate to be able to visit New Zealand a couple of years ago. One of our favorite trips of all time. New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is now our go-to wine, especially with the green lip oysters.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, green lip mussels, yeah.
Yeah,
so in Marlborough, alongside the wine industry, the two other major industries are forestry and aquaculture, and that includes, the very famous green lip mussels, which
we're the home of.
Robert was referring to. So they go extremely well. Here's right on the button with the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Couldn't have a better match.
I'm going to get some today.
So Katie in Parkland, United States, says, I have to try this wine from the 180 acres in this beautiful Marlborough County. New Zealand is so clean and delicious. Thank you so much. Thank you, Katie.
Cheers, Katie.
Kathy from Mission in the United States. Show on a map of New Zealand where exactly is the winery. Well, I wish we'd had time to do this earlier. I don't know if we can summon up a map like that. Maybe you have one which you could show your camera. Just hold up to the camera. Whilst you're looking for that, this is from Dean in Tiverton in the United States. I find grilled shrimp or shrimp cocktail to be the best match for your Sauvignon Blanc. What are your favorite matches?
Oh, that sounds mouth-watering.
Yeah, we get lots of crayfish up here, or lobster.
For me, I love scallops. So a scallop in a Sauvignon Blanc is absolutely delicious.
Yeah, for me, it is the green lip mussel. I forgot to say that the reason I know about Marlborough is because of the green lip mussel. I had it in Sydney once, and the home of it is Havelock, Marlborough. So Sauvignon Blanc, a bit of green lip mussel, some butter and garlic. Beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, anything seafood.
Fresh fish out of the Marlborough Sound. So is James able to close up on the map?
Maybe a bit closer. Oh, now we're getting to it. Yeah, so you can see the two islands. You can see North Island and South Island, and where the W is, there's a little blue dot, which is where your Marlborough is.
That's us, top of Spy Valley Wines on Google Maps. Sorry.
So what about visiting? How easy is it to visit you? There's a map. James has brought up a map for us, and that's Marlborough. So you have North Island, South Island, and there's Marlborough, that shaded area at the top of the South Island, sorry.
Yeah. So we're sort of the gateway to the South Island from the North Island. So to visit us, Auckland's the main international airport. If you were cruising with Viking and coming by boat, ship, and then there's a direct flight and you can come into Marlborough. So even though our airport's very small, there's no security, you sort of walk straight in and off you go. And likewise when you're departing, but it's pretty accessible, and you can come and enjoy Marlborough for several days. Come and visit us at the cellar door, and we can taste you through a lot of these delicious wines. Currently, our borders are closed, but when the world gets back to normal and we're open again, we'd love to entertain any of you. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah. And Dean from Tiverton also says he's a big fan of Prime Minister Ardern. So there we are.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're lucky to have her.
Sherry in Hamilton, Canada, and I know the answer to this because a friend of mine on Facebook sent me a message. Actually, he's a friend of Viking who connected to Bartholomew Broadbent on Facebook, and he sent me a message saying he's already in Ontario with his wine. So the question from Shari is, are your wines available in Ontario, Canada? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Which ones?
At the moment, I think we've just shipped
Satellite Pinot Noir. It's featuring with LCBO at the moment.
The Sauvignon Blanc available
of course.
through LCBO.
Yeah. If they
some envoy. Yeah.
If they want to Google Noble Estates, Craig DeBlow there, he would be able to point them in the direction of where they can.
Can you spell that? N-O-B-I-L-E?
Noble Estates.
N-O-B-L-E Estates.
Yeah, oh, Noble. Okay, Noble, yeah. Now, May in Exeter wants to know, how does Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc compare to Oyster Bay?
Well, the first interesting thing is a lot of the Oyster Bay vineyards are next to some of the Spy Valley vineyards. That's kind of cool.
We can see the winery out our window.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger than ours.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not 100% familiar with Oyster Bay, other than my mother used to drink it religiously.
It's probably at a similar price point to our satellite range. And so Oyster Bay have done incredibly well internationally, and sort of that fantastic gateway entry Sauvignon, a quality wine at a similar price point to satellite, I would suggest.
Yeah, it's, I think from a profile, I think they do more fruit forward wine. We had a blind tasting a couple of weeks ago, I think, and yeah, with Spy Valley, there's definitely a bit of restraint and that kind of balance that we talked about, and that does come from a bit of that oak, but it's more stone fruit. Some of the Oyster Bay vineyards come from a more, I think, North Marlborough, and there's a lot more fruit profile there, a lot more thiol. So it's more, probably a bit more fruity, but less stone fruit.
Yeah, but they've again done great things to put New Zealand Sauvignon on the map, international map.
Oh, we love them all.
They're very widely distributed.
And that's one thing that's very interesting that I found about this industry in Marlborough, is the collaboration between all the vineyards is incredible. Like, if I go out into the world and I try and sell Marlborough Sav, and down the road there's so-called competition for Marlborough, it's not competition. We're usually already hooking up for a drink and sharing ideas on how to push Marlborough more. So collaboration in New Zealand is what's put us on the map really too as well. So
Yeah.
the Oyster Bays, all of them, the Dog Points, anyone you can think of, we're all a big family here.
We're all neighbours. So,
Neighbours.
It's
Fantastic.
yeah.
Christopher in Dallas, get your camera ready. I'm going to go to your question in a second. Louis in Finksburg, United States. This is a very clever question from someone who's obviously got some education here. Is your Morse code on the label in code? It does not seem to match Samuel Morse's alphabet. I wouldn't know.
Which one does he have?
Louis, you'll have to put another question telling us which wine you're looking at, which vintage and which varietal, so that we can tell you which one. See if we'll get to that. Okay, so meanwhile, we're going to go to Christopher in Dallas. Could you please show that authentic New Zealand logo? I want to take a screenshot to make sure what to look for in stores. Was it a feather? Well, there were two, right?
Oh. The fern was the sustainability. Can I have that paper there? The fern was for sustainability in New Zealand wine growing. The appellation mark for quality, I'll put one up here for Marlborough, is here. At the moment, it is.
This is one of them.
And this is the other. And that one is only for Sauvignon Blanc at the moment.
In case you couldn't get that, this is the other one.
Yeah, that one.
I hope you got that, Christopher.
And that's quite new, and it's only for the Sauvignon Blanc at the moment. But the last meeting we had, we were figuring out a way to expand the different varieties.
Yeah, and it wasn't a feather; it was a fern, right?
Yeah,
correct. The New Zealand native fern, which the All Blacks, if anyone's into rugby, they wear as well.
Now, Nora in Dallas, United States, says, we are finding that California wines are becoming increasing high in alcohol, up to 15%. Are you pressured to increase alcohol for the US market? And can you comment on alcohol level and the taste of the wine? I could do a whole show on this, but let's have your answers first.
Well, first of all, we are kind of, we like to pick it at the right level. So I don't know if it would take a lot of work to create a very high alcohol here in our vineyards without destroying the flavor profile we're trying to achieve. So our wines always come up in that 13% mark, and unless we purposely pick it early.
And actually, to comment on the trend direction, we're finding in New Zealand actually, the consumer sway is to less alcohol in the wine and rather than more. And so we're certainly not feeling any pressure or influence from the US or anywhere else to increase the level of alcohol.
And if we were going to increase it, you'd probably kind of outbalance it. It'd be feeling a bit too hot. It wouldn't be right, So
this Envoy Riesling is only 8% alcohol, which is very similar to the German Rieslings. I would like to make a couple of comments about alcohol. I think, first of all, high alcohol in wine does not lend favor to the wine going with food pairings. The lower the alcohol in a wine, the easier it is to pair with foods. Secondly, it's very important to know that, let's say Amanda drank a bottle of wine that's 12.5% alcohol, which I know she could probably do. Daniel drank a bottle of wine that is 15% alcohol. the difference in alcohol intake that Daniel had over Amanda is close to 3 vodka tonics. So would you drink a bottle of 12% wine and then ask for 3 vodka tonics? Your friends would think you were nuts, but that's what you did if you drank the 15% alcohol bottle. Or to put it another way, if you drink 2 4-ounce glasses of wine that are 12% alcohol, you're likely, in most countries, not all, most like country, you'll be under the drink drive limit. If you drink 2 4-ounce glasses at 14.5% alcohol, you are likely over the drink drive limit. The other thing that's really key is that, you know, wine that like this is 12.8% alcohol. You can share a bottle of this and really not feel the effects of alcohol, unless you're drinking for the first time and it's going to impact you or you're not used to alcohol. But if you're a wine drinker and you drink a bottle of wine with a friend at 12.5, 12.8, 13% alcohol, you're not going to be feeling the effects of that alcohol very much. Whereas if you drink a wine that's 15% alcohol, you'll get 2/3 of the way down and you will be very tipsy, drunk probably. And the problem with that is, when you drink, share a bottle of wine that's 12.5% alcohol, you then want something else, and you might have a lovely little glass of port or something, or Madeira. Whereas if you are drinking 15% alcohol wine, you're so drunk, you don't really want anything else. If you do, you're just going to finish the bottle. So I think lower alcohol is extremely important.
Yeah.
Here's a funny question from Roger Yore, United States. The table you're sitting around, is it a natural wood surface?
Yeah. Well, Roger, this was actually handmade by a local craftsman, and it is absolutely 100% local wood. Yeah.
It's really long too, but you don't see the rest of it.
It's our board table, but we've we like to, as I say, we've got art in the winery that's from my brother-in-law. The furniture is handmade from a local craftsman. We've got art sculptures around the place from New Zealand. Here's Bartholomew.
Last time you came to New Zealand, you brought me this wonderful gift. It's a conch shell with some little shells. It's beautiful. And tell us the story behind these conch shells. It's an artist who made this.
Yeah, so that's a terroir, which is a traditional Maori horn or trumpet. That was made by a well-respected artist in Nelson, Brian Flintoff. It is a greeting kind of device used in ceremony. Actually, the funny thing is that the place where we got that from is Richmond, Marlborough, and you're in Richmond, Virginia, which is quite funny. That's how long the ranges are.
Well, but it's the most beautiful piece of art.
Are you going to play it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does play, but I don't want to scare everyone.
You have to play it. It's still a greeting.
We hope you've been practicing, because the first time.
To play it? Really?
Right.
Okay, you might want to turn the sound down a bit. It's loud.
Yeah, the embouchure is there.
You've definitely been practicing.
Yeah.
Poor dog hates it.
Yeah.
Connie, I don't know where Connie's from. She didn't say. Thank you so much for all this information. I find it fascinating. Thank you, Connie. This is from Julie in the United States. I'm sorry. I guess your screen got frozen at some point. I hope no one else's is frozen. I hope yours unfroze. Oh, Louis in Finksburg. Again, I guess, the same Louis. How long can your Pinot Noir and also your Sauvignon Blanc be cellared? Also, my wife and I are drinking the 28 Sauvignon Blanc during this presentation. The one word that best describes this wine to me is balance, with a capital B.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. So, Louis, it's interesting. Recently, we had a library tasting, and we went back to our 2005 Sauvignon Blanc. So, some of the vintages were outstanding still, and some others. So it depended a wee bit on the particular year that was. But for Sauvignon, you probably only. I would recommend, it's a young drinking wine. You get that fresh, fruity flavours. But the Pinot Noirs you could sell at 15 years. What would you agree, Bartholomew?
Well, yes. I mean, the Pinot Noir is a great Pinot Noir. And how long can you age a great Burgundy? So you can age them for 15, 20, 30. It depends on your cellar conditions. They could be aged for 40 or 50 years if you have perfect cellar conditions. And screw tops, by the way, are perfectly fine for aging wines as well. But the interesting thing is with the Sauvignon Blanc, when we started selling the wines in the States, they weren't as known as they are now. So we didn't always sell through everything. And so we always had a few cases left over, and even half bottles. And it tended to be me and my wife who drank a lot of these. And actually, my wife, one year got really annoyed when I went from a very old vintage of Sauvignon Blanc to a brand new one, because she was enjoying the old Spy Valley, maybe 10 years old, and then she switched to the new ones. And it's a bit of they age beautifully, the Sauvignon Blancs, but also I find that when you first release them, I prefer to keep them a bit. I buy them, I put them in my basement or cellar, and I keep them because I think they really start blossoming after they've been here for about 6 or 8 months. But they do age really well.
I agree with that. It's quite interesting because the E-Block, for instance, that we've got, which is it's aged 7 months on these, it really comes to its own, a year and a half after we release it. We've had some. I think last time you were here, Bolo, or some of your crew, we actually had some 2001 Sauvignon Blanc. And if you make wine, first of all, wine transitions its flavor as it stays in the bottle for the period. I think it's really interesting if you can get your hands on some older Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, you'll be blown away about how wonderful they can become. And I think that's probably a stigma we need to get rid of in the world, that it's just a drink now wine. It's a serious grape, and and we've got a place which we can call the treasured pathway here in that some people call Marlborough and Nelson area. You grow everything great here, and if you've got quality fruit and you've got respectful winemakers, you have to trust that this wine can last a long time. The best way to do it is go and find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very good point. And this next one is from Bud in Grimsby, Canada, and I happen to know him because he became a friend on Facebook after seeing the first Viking show, and I know that Bud and Eva are very telling the truth when they say this. Unfortunately, our first bottle is now gone. Thank you all. But I can tell you, because I have a message from him on Facebook from earlier, we have our Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc chilled, some wonderful Nanook smoked salmon in maple ready, beagle chips, and 3-year-old cheddar too, just so we don't slurp it too fast. Well, I think you said you'd bought more than one bottle. I certainly hope so. So by now you're probably on to the second or third.
Bud and Eva, you're making our mouths water over here, even though it's cook time.
I think it's interesting though. So if you go to our website, you'll see the first picture is a bottle of wine. The shadow it generates is a knife, fork, and spoon. And simply because we find from talking to our focus groups that our wine lends really well to food. So go out, eat lots of beautiful food, and drink lots of our wine.
Thank you, Bud, and I look forward to hearing from you again. And anyone who wants to join us on Spy Valley, Amanda's on Facebook, and Daniel, you're not on Facebook, are you?
An
An alias.
alias.
Okay, well, we won't go into that. But mine is very easy to find. Bartholomew Broadbent. There aren't too many of those on Facebook. Harry, I don't know where Harry is from. Thanks, Bartholomew. I have learned so much from your presentations. How many acres total with other wineries are in wine production in your region? What is the average size vineyard in your region, and do you irrigate?
About 33,000 hectares in the Marlborough region, which makes up about 85% of total New Zealand.
Yeah.
Average vineyard, it's hard to say because a lot of vineyards are grower vineyards, and they're a combination of small and large, and then they're parceled up as suppliers for the bigger wineries and stuff.
So you have everything from what we call, in a kindly way, a ma and pa vineyard, where someone has a lifestyle block with maybe 10 or 20 acres, to, some of the bigger vineyards that are, 100-acre blocks or things like that. So we have different sort of valleys within the Marlborough area, and so it's kind of constrained by the hills and mountains, although a lot of the Pinot Noir is starting to be grown on the hillsides, and some Chardonnay and things like that. And the final question
was the average, I think.
Average size of vineyard in your region, and do you irrigate?
All right, irrigation-wise, we do irrigate here around the winery because we're on very stony soils. But we do have vineyards that we don't irrigate, that have a wetland, that we're replanting, and that requires no irrigation at all. So it is a mixture depending on where you are in the valley and what soils you're on.
Next is from Pat, United States. This is more of a comment, and I agree with her. I flew into Blenheim. I was able to visit Spy Valley Winery in 2014. It was a beautiful experience. I love the Sauvignon Blanc. Also, the World War I Museum in the region was amazing. And is she referring to that aviation
Yes.
museum?
Yeah,
Tell us about that. It was an amazing museum.
Yeah, it's a collection. Well, first of all, it's owned by Peter Jackson, I think. Yeah, it was started by Peter Jackson.
Yeah, he
who made the movies.
Yeah, Peter Jackson, who's the film producer with Lord of the Rings. He's an avid aviation fan, and he owns a lot of the planes that are in the Omaka Aviation Museum itself, which he loans to them. And he had a massive hand in the design of all the displays. And so it's a real, it's actually pretty unique to have in such a small town, Marlborough. It's world class, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's
there's a biannual, or every couple of years there's an air show. So a lot of the warbirds from around the world come here and fly. The Omaka Museum too has a World War II extension as well, which they've added on, which gives you shivers when you go in it. But one thing that's really cool about Marlborough, by the way, is that a lot of people love their planes. So they're always flying around. You'll see an old World War I plane. You'll see an old Bristol bomber. You'll see
Tiger Moth.
There's even a Spitfire, and you hear it nonstop. It's just, I love it because I'm a big plane buff as a kid. But it's quite a unique kind of area. It's like, if there were any barns, people would be flying in them.
Yeah, there's the airport is essentially very central in the valley, so you have a view of the planes, as Dan said, from everywhere. So we get our own private displays. It's fantastic.
Yeah, good.
This is from Sharon in Palm City. I'm grateful to areas that are sticking with low alcohol wine. I appreciate enjoying a wine without feeling sloshed at the end of the evening. It ruins the experience. Thank you.
No, that's a good point.
Thanks, Sharon. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah. This is from Sherry in Hamilton, Canada. Again, excellent presentation. After you answered my question on availability, I checked my local LCBO, found your wine, and I'm going to purchase a bottle to drink with our salmon tonight. That's fantastic.
Oh, that's so great, Sherry. Yeah. Enjoy.
Sherry, sorry. Louis from Finksburg. My wife prepared for us a delicious New Orleans Malfoletto dip that went wonderfully with your Sauvignon Blanc.
Ooh, yum.
I'm so hungry right now.
So
We haven't
I
had
haven't
breakfast
had breakfast yet.
yet.
of course, what time is it there? What time are you there?
We're now 9:49 a.m.
Yeah.
Got up really early for us.
Yeah.
We're sort of towards the end of the questions. James, this says St. Louis, James in St. Louis, but I think it's James Prismal. I'm not sure. He says, I've got a logo slide ready to show too. I'm not sure if, yes, here it is. Ah, here it is. So this is for Christopher, who wanted to see the logos. This is a maybe easier thing to take the screenshot of. And then, of course, this show will be up tomorrow online. So if you missed this, you can go back and watch to the end of this tomorrow, and you'll see those logos again. Thank you, James. Of course, this show couldn't be done without James Prismal in the background, the producer who's bringing up all these brilliant pictures and things, and then also Claire Armitage and Heather Donoghue, who are our key contacts at Viking on gathering all the information to give to James. And without you three, this would be a very difficult thing to do. I would like to thank Amanda and Daniel so much for this wonderful Spy Valley story, for telling us about New Zealand, and I don't know if we have any other videos for closing.
Through this door, we have our white wine cellar, which holds up to 3,000 tons of white wine annually. And we're going to head up top for a sneak at something which you wouldn't normally see. So I thought I might show you up to the roof, which is somewhere we wouldn't normally take people on a regular tour. Come on out.
This will not be the last show, even though this was advertised to be the last of this season's Wine Wednesdays. Remember, next week we have one more with Cyril Camus from Camus Cognac. But Amanda and Daniel, thank you so much. If you'd like to say any closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Bartholomew and the team at Viking. It's been a privilege to feature, and thank you to all the guests who have participated. It's just wonderful to be able to sort of connect with the outside world, which is difficult in these current times. But we welcome you to Spy Valley anytime you'd like to visit. Please let us know you're coming so we can give you the special treatment.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're enjoying the wines. And yeah, as we say in New Zealand, kia kaha, which means stay strong, stay healthy.
Thank you. And Daniel?
I was just gonna say that wine is magic, and I want people need to go and discover New Zealand wine. I mean, if you want anything that's gonna like elevate the moment you're in, a great bottle or a great glass of wine will do that. So I discovered Spy because I wasn't really searching. I wish I searched earlier, New Zealand wine in general. So discover strength.
Absolutely. And go to New Zealand and hear this.
Hey, do it again.
Coming.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Shells.
Thank you. Stay safe, everybody.